Oh, and by the way, Eric Kingston and Brian Dale, they kind of co-facilitated the housing discussions, and they both happen to be board members of the Idaho Rural Partnership. So thank you, Brian and Eric, and they both participated in literally dozens of these community reviews around the state over the years. For the recreation focus area, I want to thank Dave Doran. Dave is the director of Southeast Idaho Council of Governments, and Dave served as a facilitator for the recreation focus area. And then also I want to thank Sean Cafferty from USDA Rural Development and Kathy Muir from Idaho Parks and Recreation. And then the third focus area, community image and identity. I want to recognize Yap Boss from University of Idaho Extension, and I'm not sure if he can be with us tonight. And also Maureen Gresham from Federal Highway Administration. Yap and Maureen co-facilitated the image and identity focus area. And then finally, Nancy Richardson from the tourism division at the Idaho Department of Commerce. I want to give special thanks to Lori Higgins and Marcy Miller for kind of being a team with me to kind of co-coordinate these activities, and I just really enjoy working with them, and thanks for all of their support and help. And I also want to give my last thanks to Mayor Mark Carroll, Lisa Tornabene, and Kurt Hibbert from the city of Boise for all of the time, effort, energies, and commitment that they've put into this process. We've been
John, city of Blackfoot.
What did I say?
Boise.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. We enjoyed the promotion.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, from the city of Blackfoot. Yeah. Okay, so great. So now moving on, I get into the real reason we're here. So a few minutes ago, as I was introducing team members, I spoke briefly about the focus areas. The community review process is a 3-phase process. And as I mentioned, we're right now completing phase 2. Phase 1 happened in early or mid 2019, which some of you may have participated in, but the completion of phase 1, which is very much interacting with Blackfoot residents through a series of listening sessions and through a community survey we did. We got input from hundreds of people, or over 100 people, just from doing the listening sessions alone. And so from all of that information we gathered back in May of 2019, we went through all that information, and working with community leaders, we identified these 3 focus areas for further work and project development and action planning. So again, those 3 focus areas are housing and homelessness, community recreation, and Blackfoot's image and identity. So what we're here to do is share with you, if this is your first interaction with this project, we want to share with you the work we've done within these 3 focus areas. So we've divided into 3 teams, and we've developed action plans for high priority projects that were identified for each of the three focus areas. So before we launch into sharing those action plans, I just want to give it a little tease here. I want to ask and invite you, especially for you there at the senior center, and for at least the one Blackfoot gentleman, maybe more than one of you who are participating by computer. I want to ask and invite you to think about, as you hear about these focus areas and you hear us talk about these projects, I want to invite you to think about which one really calls to you, which one really speaks to you, and which one would you be interested in being involved in and helping make a reality. Because here, before the end of this meeting, we're going to formally extend that invitation to you and ask you to give you an opportunity to kind of raise your hand and say, wow, I like that idea. I'd like to be part of that effort to complete that particular project. So please be thinking about that as we, as we share the action plans. Okay, I think that's kind of the intro context kind of information I wanted to share. Lori or Marcy or anybody else want to chime in with anything before we get into the focus areas? Great. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And let's, visiting and home team members, let's do the same. We're going to do the same sequence, I think. And I propose so we're going to start with homelessness and housing, followed by recreation, followed by image and identity. And so, great. Thank you, Laurie, for putting these together.
John, can I, Allison, it looks like it's you for the home team, housing team.
Is Allison with us?
Yes.
Oh, great. Allison,
Am I
Allison, there you go.
There we go. Since I wasn't able to be in the majority of the planning in the morning, is there another person that would want to speak to what was accomplished there? I had a work crisis, so I had to, I was gone during most of the development of this.
Is the
I see,
slide
yeah.
up?
No, the recreation slide is up.
Okay, let me try.
Let me ask, while you're working on that, Carter or Julie, would one of the two of you be able to speak on our behalf tonight?
I also plugged this in.
Oh.
If this was a sense of the vision that the folks on the team had, kind of going into this whole exercise of putting an action plan together, whatever, what the ideal reality would be.
I'm available to talk if you need me to, but I didn't hear if Carter was.
Well, I think if you're comfortable, why don't you go ahead and do that, Julie? Or was that you, Allison? I apologize.
No, it's Julie.
Okay.
I'm calling in from my phone, so let me see if I can.
Well, Julie, if you want me to help out, I can do that. Either way.
Okay. I just need to get the slide up.
Okay.
Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. I'd be happy to talk.
Okay.
All right. So on the housing and homeless action committee, we fleshed out some really important component pieces and really felt like moving forward immediately, which is tomorrow. If you look at when completion date is going to happen, we felt strongly that we should move forward with creating an action plan for the variety and homeless shelter options. And so if you'll just flow down to the first section there, you can see that number 1 is a mini grant, 2 talks about, what the city can do, and 3, what a local match would look like. And so we have flushed out because Kurt was on our committee, so and Scott, so they stepped up and are the persons that are going to move forward with this mini grant that is actually going to be written tomorrow. So there are, you can just flow through that first section, but there's just some
You-
wonderful people, some wonderful parts that are already in place for moving forward with the homeless shelters and options that we had initially flushed out and talked about. I'm sorry, did you have something you needed?
I was just gonna say, if you need us to expand it all at any point, just let Eric and I know, and we'll jump in. Kurt can too, I'm sure.
All right. Go right ahead.
Okay, you were on the mini grant, and well, I think that there was a lot of energy behind the issue of the mini grant and the submission of that, and support. Everybody that was there was really in support of this issue, and I think that there was a lot of comfort that can you hear me? I think I muted myself for a split second there.
No, you're,
A lot of comfort that they would be able to find a match for funding. So, but Julie, I'll go ahead and step out of the way. I think maybe it'd probably be better for you to go through what you're comfortable with, and then we can jump in at the end rather than interrupting you. So sorry about that.
No problem. Just to give you a little bit of context, some of the homeless shelter options, this we didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves too tightly, because there's a lot of components to the homeless shelter. We have in there, having a warming station, possible shower pieces. There's so many component pieces to this, and with with Scott being so intimately involved with the homeless community, and Kurt having boots on the ground with funding and connections, and Allison had just some amazing context for us to move forward with. So you can see that we've got it pretty well laid out as far as persons and people that are already in place that can help with that, but also ones that we'd certainly reach out to that are listed there. And there's, that it's going to be a big effort, because there'll be people involved to help make a selection for site and scope, and well aware of, utilities, who's going to pay for what. All of that was part of the conversation we had. And so, we've got people that are very involved, that are good with marketing and getting teams put together. And so we just felt like you can see the detail that is written there. We've got some local agencies, state agencies that are listed, and you can see how we're going to measure progress, and identifying what resources it's going to need to make it happen. If you look at the timeline, it is pretty tight, because it has to be. The initial grant being submitted tomorrow. Kurt felt like, with what he's done already coming into the last 2 years, and then what we fleshed out today, it's doable. And then putting these other deadlines in place, we all work well with deadlines for sure. So Scott had some really good points on logistics, and Allison, as far as having experience doing this before and currently. So I'll just, Allison, would you like to add anything?
Technical difficulties there.
Okay.
No, I think it's a great opportunity for all of us that have expertise in different areas to create this exciting program that helps people that have a lot of misfortune. And Julie, I think you did an excellent job in summarizing what was talked about. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have one. How many, what's the estimation on how many people are homeless here in Blackfoot?
You know, there was just a point in time count conducted that did, I think, look at Blackfoot, but I think that there's probably even better estimates of it locally from some of the people who deal with it there.
We have looked at that in the past. It's really difficult to put an actual number on it, but at any given point in time, it's between 30 and 50 people with regard to actually being homeless. If you talk to the school district, they put the number at closer to 200. People who may not have a home of their own, but they're staying with parents, relatives, friends. Some people call that couch surfing, but most of those people have a place to stay, a place to eat. I think what you're talking about as far as the shelters, we're looking at the more classically defined homeless, which may be a combination of transient people, or it may be somebody who, Kurt and I were talking today, who might get priced out of a rental home. Rent just continues to go up and up and up. A house that was being rented for $600 a few months ago is up to $800 or $900 now. And that displaces somebody who could have only afforded the $600 rent.
Yeah, we're in that same boat. That's how we got to our home here in Blackfoot. We were able to purchase it so that we wouldn't find ourselves priced out in Pocatello, because we saw that handwriting on the wall. So yes, I understand about that one all too well, especially for those of us, who are retired on fixed income, or perhaps those who may have other issues preventing them from holding down full-time work, or now, heaven forbid, with COVID, making matters worse.
There's also a significant population that are homeless of people that are struggling with kind of severe disabilities, people that are having mental health issues, substance abuse issues. That all also goes into homelessness, as well as the working poor, or people, like you're just saying, people on a fixed income. So there's a large group of people that could be served, through having shelters in the area. And it benefits the greater community, because hospitals have places for people to stay when they're discharged. Police officers are often tasked with becoming homeless workers. That provides another resource for them as well. So I think it benefits the community as a whole.
Yeah, I'm like I say, I'm new here to town, so there's a lot of these things that you guys are familiar with that I'm just kind of, just looking around a little bit as we drive through town and about. I know down in Pocatello, there's a regular group of people who are standing off the side of the road with signs. So far, I think I've only seen one or two here in Blackfoot that I can remember off the top of my head. And I know that, being a veteran myself, that there's certainly a disproportionate number of veterans, particularly from the Vietnam era, which I am a veteran of, who, suffering PTSD, substance abuse, and all the rest of these things that go along with it, which certainly exacerbate homelessness.
Exactly, good point.
Yeah.
Eric, I see a hand up there.
Whose hand is up? I didn't.
Eric Kingston, go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
You're muted, Eric.
Well, we can't hear you, Eric.
How about now?
There you go.
There we go. So yeah, Eric Kingston, Idaho Housing, also has some technical difficulties apparently. Since 1998, I've run the housing hotline. It's a statewide toll-free information number. And I would say that in the last few years, it's become easier to be homeless for the first time in Idaho than it has been in the last couple decades. A lot of the people I'm talking to or hearing from are senior citizens who have been renting someplace maybe for decades, and a private equity firm comes in and buys the complex or buys the house they're renting and to turn it into an investment property, and those rents get doubled overnight. So that forces the rents up and the people out, and because of the tight market, they just really don't have any place to go. So we're seeing a completely different demographic of homeless people, not the chronic homeless folks that we might think of, but these are people that we might have thought of as middle class, just a few years ago, and suddenly they're being priced out of the places they call home and the communities that they work in. So it's become a real endemic problem throughout the country, and the West is seeing a lot of those impacts because of climate and culture refugees coming in from the coast, and they find they can buy 2 or 3 homes for what they sold their home for in California, so they do, and that has a huge impact on smaller communities.
Good point.
Great. Okay, we need to transition to the next focus area, but I guess before we do that, is one thing I wanted to reinforce that Julie touched on, and I think it's key, is that list of, under the heading project team, that list of agencies and organizations, their role is key, because that's the group of people that will kind of get more into the details of looking at different ways of defining shelter for the homeless in Blackfoot. It's not just building a big building like we think of conventionally as a homeless shelter, like a hotel for homeless people. It's easy for me to have that image stuck in my head, but there's increasingly, there's all kinds of other different types of shelter for the homeless. So kind of evaluating those alternatives and kind of landing on what makes the most sense and what's most feasible and appropriate for Blackfoot among those different shelter options is a big role of this project team, as I understand it. And also, before we move on, I just want to thank really briefly the community members who were part of this conversation about housing: Scott Smith, Ron Ramirez, and Allison Isaacs, and Kurt Hibbert. Thank you all for participating in the conversation, and I hope I didn't miss anybody there. Okay, Lori, can we switch to recreation? Great. Okay. Dave, are you gonna summarize your work, the group's work, for us?
Yes, I will. And I think my only other backup would be Elizabeth. So Elizabeth, if you see any gaps or any comments that might need to be made here, please fill in.
Wait, but sorry, Dave. The mayor is at the senior center, correct, or no?
Mayor Carroll is at the senior center. Unfortunately, during the recreational breakout, he got tasked with some really important meetings that he had to go and attend to, and so he didn't really have a lot of this information, and I spoke with him briefly before the meeting tonight.
Oh, okay.
Offered to share, so I
Okay.
hope that that's okay.
Okay. All right. Great. Yeah. Sorry. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, all good. So really, I think it's important to recognize a couple of the vision statements that were made prior to us talking about recreation as a focus area. And two comments that I think summarize this presentation well are, one vision statement is affordable recreational opportunities for all ages is something that's very important for the community. And two, recognizing that there are different types of recreation for different types of people. So what we traditionally may think of as recreation as a high intensity type activity isn't always the case. We can really break up recreation into a few different mindsets or paradigms, if you will. One is outdoor recreational facilities, and two are recreational programs or activities. So we tried to keep these things in mind as we move through the conversation, and it was very productive. Mayor Carroll offered a lot here, and we tried to really synthesize some of his comments into what you're seeing on the table. So again, as you scroll across the top here, you have action steps, persons or partners responsible, resources needed, progress indicators or benchmarks, and then your completion dates. And as you go down the first column, you'll see that we've set up the Greenbelt expansion as one priority area. And first thing that we would think would be necessary is establishing a Greenbelt committee. So in a lot of communities, we'll see foundations or friends of the so-and-so Greenbelt or different types of partnerships and community advisory groups who are really there to help assist the community at large with fundraising, defining priorities, helping address different issues that come up. So if Greenbelt expansion is a priority for the community, that would be a good first step. They would also help define the project. So in this capacity, it would be helping determine what parts of a Greenbelt expansion project would be most necessary. Is that extending the actual Greenbelt itself, the actual pathway? Is it identifying certain access points along the Greenbelt that could help residents get to different parts of the greater Greenbelt facility? So what I'm saying here is, as you think about the Blackfoot Greenbelt, you can see there's a Frisbee golf course, Jensen's Grove, basketball courts, airport park, baseball diamonds, neighborhoods, the river itself, which is a big part of the community's interest, is the river. And so do people want to have access for fishing, maybe a loading point for boating or other types of river recreation? So defining what parts of the Greenbelt expansion are really needed or desired would also be a good first step here. Unfortunately, when you think about just Greenbelt expansion, it does raise some more questions than it does just provide an answer or a solution. So we really want to dig a little bit deeper here. You know, the city could be involved in that. It could help organize a survey. There are different resources that would also be needed here. So again, friends, groups of people who are really interested in this, businesses in the community, people who have an interest in seeing this move forward. So some of our benchmarks would be establish what that scope is, get survey results back, and we feel like we could accomplish that within a relatively short amount of time. So 1 to 2 weeks to a couple months. The next step that we talked about would be conducting a feasibility study. So sometimes when you think about the projects that I mentioned, you're going to need some sort of financial investment. And that can come through a lot of grant resources, which are identified here in the third column here in the middle. So with the mini grants offered through this IRP community review, they could be seed money and act as cash match towards some of these grants, such as the RBDG grant with USDA. They could offer a facility or, a feasibility study through that grant that will help pay for that. Also, as I mentioned, accessing some of those river points of interest, or maybe different federal lands along the Greenbelt path, federal lands access program with federal highways. There's a tourism grant that might help raise awareness through the Department of Commerce, or even the GEM grant. And then lastly, we talked about Idaho Transportation Department's Transportation Alternatives Program, which could also be a really good financial resource for extending the physical pathway along the Greenbelt. So some of the people that we've identified as persons or partners who could help are the City of Blackfoot's Parks and Recreation point man, Wade Gardner, CCOG, some of my team would be very interested in looking at this. We're the Economic Development District, and we have an interest with furthering the economic vitality of the community, which could be done through expanding this facility. And our transportation and mobility manager, Molly Swallow, who has a lot of resources and connections to really help move some of these opportunities forward. Progress benchmarks, we want to complete the study, and we think that we could do that within a relatively short amount of time too. So prioritizing the findings and then fundraising. Again, if you think about establishing a committee, that could be really important. So we feel like the lead on that we would want the City of Blackfoot to have some ownership, but not all the ownership there in the responsibilities of fundraising. And we really felt like this committee could assist the City of Blackfoot, who has really taken on the ownership responsibilities, both in terms of maintenance and expansion. And we really think that this committee could really assist them in their efforts and really help be a foundational arm for doing that. There's a lot of business interests locally who could help with that here too. Although none of them have committed, we recognize that there are some strong community partners here. Roops Burgers, Cannon Builders, Premier Technology, the INL, and the Blackfoot Police have all been really big partners, big stakeholders in the Greenbelt, in Jensen's Grove area, and that entire facility. So we think that garnering support from local businesses, local philanthropists could really assist with that effort. And then providing them with namesake and branding opportunities for their contributions. We see this as being continuous. And so that's something that the foundational or the advisory committee could really help with. And then lastly, implementing those findings, taking the results and putting them into implementation. So working with the police department or working with Idaho Department of Parks and Rec, who is also a part of this committee, Kathy Amir, and talking about the recreational trails program. What other grants are available to assist the city in moving this forward? And that's really depending upon the findings. So as we continue to drill down into what the city feels like are the most desirable elements in moving this initiative forward, those will illuminate the different opportunities as we continue to progress. So with that conversation, we also discussed the same concept I mentioned in the visioning statement. Was there's different types of recreation for different types of people. We're really talking about a physical environment here. And it would be short-sighted to not consider other types of recreation and opportunities that are more of a low-hanging fruit, if you will. And so maybe if you could direct it to the slide where we talk about, the skill building opportunities. Lori, do you have that slide that you could refer to?
There it is.
Yeah, this is it. Thank you.
Dave, about three minutes if you can.
Okay, I'm going to scoot through this, recognizing there's a lot of opportunities here. So sharing information about art, culture, different types of trades or courses. And when I say courses, it's not just your traditional classroom type courses. These are places where clubs or organizations could get together, even within that greater Greenbelt area, Jensen's Grove area, and have group painting projects, yoga in the park, figuring out how to partner with maybe some current initiatives in the community, like the CTC, the Community career technical center that is on the bond measure right now? Is that a place where people can go and get continued education? We think that skill building is a really important part of this conversation, and we don't want to lose sight of some of the partnerships that are available through partnering with the senior center, the community garden, maybe some downtown buildings, which has some crossover with the community identity and image, and even the public library. We see a lot of opportunities here too. So I'll end my presentation there, and hopefully I captured everything well.
Great, thank you. Questions from the community? Anybody at the senior center want to have a comment or a question?
My wife and I went down to the disc golf and ran a sequence, and then we also did a little walking around that little lake there, or pond, or whatever you want to call it. We love to go out and do stuff like that. Unfortunately, with my wife's artificial hip and knee, we can't do the long distance hiking that we used to do when we were younger. One of the things that I was thinking about is, and I realize here, we have a lot of city lights and stuff, but in Minnesota, they have an actual observatory in one of the regional parks, and one of the local weathermen comes down once a year and does a stargazing thing for the community. I think something like that would be kind of fun during the summer.
Yeah, that's a great example of the kind of skill building kinds of opportunities I think that we're talking about. I also wanted to, along with Mayor Carroll, I wanted to thank Jan Simpson for being part of this conversation. At least yesterday, she was able to participate in the recreation focus area. Okay, any other questions or comments about this focus area and these two ideas?
I think this was touched on a little bit yesterday, and but or earlier today. I think a partner on the Greenbelt expansion project is also the Image and Identity Group, the branding effort, because they were talking about how the river is pretty central to the community's identity, and so there could be opportunities for, activities, mutual projects, or just, keep staying in touch to inform each other's projects. So just wanted to mention that because that came up earlier. The Image and Identity Group had Greenbelt on their list originally, but we're really about, hey, we want to make sure that we capture that in whatever sort of image and identity we develop for Blackfoot and the surrounding area.
I would have one additional comment, and I just saw somebody pop up that tourism grants are only available for tourism. The city of Blackfoot actually wrote a grant previously about drawing people to the community and using this facility, the Greenbelt facility, as a way to not only attract people into the community, but to increase the economic vitality, right? And to promote connectivity. So there's a lot of opportunities here for both bringing people from outside in to the city of Blackfoot, to generating awareness of this resource, which is a tremendous resource in the greater region, and in increasing the economic framework of the community. People will stop and spend money, and it also offers an alternative transportation option for people who don't have a vehicle, or maybe who just don't want to drive. So there's a lot of opportunities outside of just recreation that ought to be considered with this Greenbelt expansion initiative.
And David, I'm the one who typed that into the comment section. I just want, I'm not trying to be negative. I just want you to understand how that funding works. The funding comes from a 2% bed tax that's collected on every hotel room and privately owned campground. So it's about heads and beds. So you have to be marketing to get people to spend the night in the region, the area, for whatever you're promoting, in order to continue to feed that kitty from whence the grant funds come. And I was just trying to make that as a clarifying statement, not as a negative statement.
No, sure, I completely understand, and I think that task was accomplished through that previous effort. I sent this brochure that was really an advertising piece that the city pursued back in 2013 to John earlier today. And I think that if he's so inclined to share that out, I think people will be able to recognize the advantages and the pursuit of that exact thing. So I appreciate you saying that.
And I'd be happy to sit down with you, John, and kind of go over our grant program and what qualifies and what doesn't, and help with some clarification for that. Because we really do want to, you know, we really do want to promote tourism in Idaho. And we want to help rural communities promote what they've got. We have some rules we have to follow, and we are very restricted by those. A lot of people come to us looking for signage. Well, but that promotes whatever we're trying to promote. And it just isn't within our bandwidth. It doesn't fit within the confines of how this grant program was built. It doesn't mean we don't think it's valuable or important. It just doesn't qualify.
Right. Great. So yeah, that's helpful. I might be getting in touch, Nancy. I know how to find you. Okay, so I think some minutes ago there was some good segue language, I think, from Lori to take us into the next focus area, the community image and identity. So I think that's where we're at. Maureen, are you on, Maureen? Yeah, she is.
I think Pam Eckhart is on as well.
I am.
Oh, Pam.
Yeah.
Pam and who else?
And Lisa.
And Lisa, yeah, great.
And Maureen was with us this morning too.
Oh yeah, so I guess I'll just throw it up in the air. Which one of you wants to share with us about your work?
We can do maybe how we did this afternoon. First one, and Lisa can do the second one, if that's okay, Lisa.
Absolutely.
Great.
So are you going to share your screen again?
I'm working on it.
Oh, okay. Well, while we're waiting,
it's a process.
I'll introduce myself to community members that don't know. My name is Pam Eckhart, and I'm the clerk for Bingham County, which Blackfoot is the city that we're housed in, I guess I should say. But I'm a fourth generation Bingham County person. And so I have deep roots in Bingham County, and I live in the city of Blackfoot, and I love my little town of Blackfoot. So I was willing to be part of this, to do whatever I can do my part. So our committee was for image and identity, and there was several areas that we identified, but we went for the quick win very first. Okay, sorry, you've moved my thing. So there we go.
This one.
So we went for a quick win, which is pride in the city through beautification of the entryways. And we have three main entryways: the north, the south, and the west into the city of Blackfoot. Two of the entrances have quite nice rock signages. We just thought we would like to enhance that with maybe increased plantings of flowers or, other appropriate plantings. And that community groups would be involved in to work with the maintenance of those. Because you could make a really great plan, but if you can't maintain it through the summer seasons, and it starts to look haphazard, so that's not so helpful. So our first area is to use one of these mini grants to hire a professional landscaper for a plan for these 3 areas. The north area doesn't really have anything right now other than just a highway sign. So if we had a plan, then we could work with other groups to see if they would be willing to take that challenge on planting and maintaining, and also be working with City Parks Director. So our goal was to have that plan in hand and designed by April and May, and have the plantings done by June. And then these, hopefully, groups would be willing to take that on through the summer. So we identified some groups that would be helpful. We do have a vital garden center here, Kessler's Garden Center. We've got Master Gardener groups, 4-H clubs, Eagle Scouts, Gold Award Scouts. And then the committee that would lead this, we identified Lisa Tornabene with the city, and also Wade Gardner, that's the director, that would kind of lead that committee and reach out to some of these other groups that I have listed here that could facilitate this. Then we also talked about not only just those entryways, but the entire the highways into the cities. How do those look? How does your city appear when you first move in? You first come into the city. We identified the south end of our city has some blight and some issues that need to be addressed. So there was the thought of working with these landowners, or along the way encouraging them to be involved in this process, work with the Idaho Transportation Department, and also our own City of Blackfoot Tree Committee to maintain maybe a living wall of appropriate tree plantings, or there could be fences that would be decorated by artwork, or I went through the city of Cheyenne, Wyoming, while they were remodeling their capital, and along all of their fences, they had really interesting historical pictures that they had placed along their fences. So that's where we are on that.
I like the idea of a living wall, trees. Again, I'm not an Idaho native, so I don't know exactly what the most effective Idaho species of trees would be. Obviously, you plant something now, it's going to be a long time before it grows up. But there was a guy in San Jose way back in the late 1800s who took it upon himself to plant a row of eucalyptus trees along a major highway that headed down between San Jose and Gilroy. We're talking like 40 or 50 miles. This guy planted that whole area by himself. Now, again, that was a long time ago. Eucalyptus trees are very drought tolerant, and they grew up and they look really pretty along this, what's now a 6-lane highway. But, so I like the idea. I don't know exactly what would be most appropriate, however.
Great.
Well, you'll notice, Brian and Ray, that I actually crossed Lisa's name off because we had to do some shuffling earlier, and she moved over to the next project that they're going to talk about as the lead. So we're actually looking for a lead person on this project. So keep that in mind.
I'll keep that in mind.
Everybody's gonna be fighting over you before the night is through. You know that, right?
Just remember, I'm taking care of grandchildren going to school, Pocatello Veterans Honor Guard, and I don't want to overextend myself too much.
Not too much. Oh, there was one more thing that didn't kind of got tacked on here. Do one of you want to talk about that?
Oh, sure, I can cover that. We let's see, is this where our 5 positive things, or Lisa, you're going to talk about that part?
I think this is the water tower
Okay.
idea.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there
the
was a
last,
suggestion of when it gets to the point where the city branding happens, that process goes through. What is our town known for? And we did have just a funny discussion about that. We do love our 2 water towers in our town. So could a water tower be our artwork project? Would you have various water towers through the town, creative, like some towns have, a bison or some other sort of animal, and they're all decorated differently that are going throughout the town. So that was kind of just a fun community involvement activity.
That's great. Okay, Lisa,
Okay, so, and the other thing, just to tie on to what Pam was saying about our little mini water tower project, we also thought that would be a good tie-in for a potential walking tour, historic tour, to encourage people to come and visit Blackfoot. So we see that as kind of a multi-faceted benefit to the community. So we used most of our time talking about the beautification, and then we spoke briefly about a branding and marketing plan for the city of Blackfoot. So I'm just going to go through. You'll see that the slide is not very full because we just didn't get very far in it. But the first thing that the team is going to do is review the phase 1 ideas, both the summary and the raw data, so that we understand what phase 1 participants were thinking when they identified the fact that the city of Blackfoot needs to be branded. We need a marketing plan, both internally and externally. So that is where we're going to start. We're going to start looking at the data, look at the information, and see where we are and where the recommendation is to move forward. And then we want to form a small group to understand what are the criteria that we want to market. What do we want to be as a city? Do we want to be a fair city, or a fair and a potato city, or an agricultural community, or an outdoor recreational community? Whatever it happens to be, we need to find out what our community and what our citizens want as our identity. Do we want to be the food truck center of, I don't know, Epicurean center of the Snake River? I don't know what that is, but we want to develop some options and then go out to the community and let them provide input and perspective and vote on what they feel they want Blackfoot to be. We'd like to have our progress on that would be a written plan in hand. And really the priority for us is the beautification. So we actually have our completion data after the entryways have been addressed. Then we'll start working a little bit harder on this and moving it forward a little more aggressively. We understand that there needs to be an advertising campaign first, locally, and then regionally, statewide, and then it would also be a great dream to go nationally, to have people recognize us. something that I didn't bring up this morning that I had talked to a former mayor about was, maybe when we want to consider having a sister city elsewhere, maybe Germany or Ireland, where they have perhaps a similar crop structure that we have. That might be also a way to market ourselves internationally. But we want to utilize some local companies that have received grants from borough to perhaps leverage some pro bono work from them in order to help us do this. So we know that there's not a lot of money. We're going to apply for a portion from the mini grant, but we also want to utilize, get some skin in the game from our local businesses and kind of pay back, so to speak, some of the benefits that they've reaped by being part of our community. And the timeline for that is December of this year. And then that's kind of the same. And then the team building so the other thing that we talked about was having something akin to a team building activity or a contest or whatever it happens to, however we decide to frame it up, but have individuals go out into the community with their cell phones and take photos of their 5 favorite things about their community. So what are our strengths as a community? And then also take 5 pictures of what our opportunities are and where can we grow, where can we develop, and then submit those to the city or to me, and use those as part of the project and in developing plans moving forward. And the one thing that we also recognized was that not necessarily 2 brands are needed, but we need to think about marketing ourselves to our own community, because I think there are a lot of people that maybe aren't proud to say that they're from Blackfoot. And we need to increase that buy into the community and that pride in our community, and encourage people to go out and sweep their sidewalks and pick their weeds and do things because they're proud of where they live. So that would be the internal looking marketing that we need to do. And then we need to do that external marketing that I already spoke about. Are there any questions?
Good, thank you, Lisa.
Welcome.
Yeah, that's the people going out and taking pictures. That's kind of an example of crowdsourcing, right? Kind of. One thing I'm curious about, I'm thinking it, so I'll just think it out loud. I'm wondering, in the context of this discussion here with branding and marketing, did the idea of the proximity to the Chauban tribes and Fort Hall and the culture and history there, did that come up as an opportunity or as potentially part of what Blackfoot is known for or could be known more?
It didn't, but that's certainly something that we should note down. So that's a really good idea.
Because that's one of the, when I hear or read the word Blackfoot or think about city of Blackfoot, that's one of the, I often will think of the Fort Hall and the tribes in the same thought.
Yeah, and there also may be an opportunity to, Kurt and I have talked about this too, there may also be an opportunity to leverage some tribal input and support for those entries into the city, because it goes, right from tribal land to the city. So that might be another opportunity.
Great.
Something else that I'm thinking about here a little bit, again, I apologize if I'm getting too much in here. A couple of years ago, I took a little tour of your fairgrounds here. And of course, coming from Minnesota, spending a lot of time in Minnesota and being very used to the county fairs and the big Minnesota State Fair. To be honest, I was a little disappointed with what you have here in your fair, and I realize that's not necessarily your purview, but maybe there could be some conversations with the fair board to see about making the fair a little bit better destination. Again, I realize that this is going to be sacrilege for an Idahoan, but you know, you need to have more than just a rodeo. You know, and very, very small amount of you know, anything besides just the food truck, which is nice, but you know, it'd be nice to have some other amenities out there besides just those two things.
Did you just go this year?
Well, of course, this year was the COVID, so I
Yeah.
didn't go.
Oh, so you're
year
looking at
before.
other years,
It was
yeah.
the year before.
Okay.
Iowa has the butter cow. Maybe you could have the potato butter potato carving.
There you go. Or the water tower sculpture.
Out of butter.
Yeah.
Or potatoes. You do it out of potatoes, I guess. Iowa was butter.
Yeah.
I did go to the potato museum and I enjoyed a nice baked potato when I got done.
Nice. Okay. Any final comments or questions for this this focus area or this particular project? Great, Ray, and by the way, welcome to this conversation. Thank you for joining us, and I think all of us are seeing your chat.
That's great.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's the work we wanted to share with you all. We have a little time here just to wrap up and talk about what's next, which really is what phase 3 of the community review process is all about. At least one or two focus areas. You might remember there was a reference to a mini grant. Those are modest grant funds that are currently available, that they have an expiration date on them. But those are grant funds that are currently available through the USDA grant funds, available through University of Idaho Extension. So we're anticipating that the community is going to apply for these grant funds that will help support the projects that we've been talking about here tonight. At least kind of some seed money to kind of keep this ball rolling and continue to build momentum.
Before I forget, can I just ask that Brian, Ray, Jason, anybody else at the senior center who is not already affiliated with one of the teams, if you would like to join one of the teams, we're not putting you in charge or anything, just would like to participate in either the housing effort, shelter effort, the branding, beautification, or either of the recreation projects, would you please let us know in the chat? And if you would just like to stay informed, we'll need your email. So put that into the chat as well. I think we already got yours, Brian.
Yeah, I would take that a step further and invite Brian, Ray, and Jason, and those at the senior center, just open it up and tell us. I see what Jason just wrote, expressed his interest in the chat in recreation. I just want to know if any of you feel pulled to one focus area or another, or one particular project or another that you feel particularly interested in. Anything you want to express like that? And if not, we can be in touch. One of us or somebody from the city can follow up. And
Brian says either recreation or branding.
oh, I see that now. Yeah.
Marcy, you wrote down his email. Yeah, cool.
Right. Great, excellent.
And yeah, if you want to kind of get up to speed, Brian, on that first phase, or anybody who is not familiar with what we did back in May 2019 for the first phase, that link that Marcy put in the chat to, there's a whole website for this process. So all the action plans and everything's going to go on there, but you can also see read the phase 1 report from back in May of 2019 if you go to that website.
Great. Anybody at the senior center there wanna chime in and express an interest in any particular project that they heard about tonight? And if not, if I'll as an alternative, I'll offer this. If you're at the senior center and you have questions or comments, or you want to express interest in continuing to be involved, please share that with Kurt there at the senior center before you leave tonight, so he can just make notes of that. Right. Lori, would you like to say anything about the steering committee or community coaches, or do you think we've handled we've handled that earlier today?
Yeah, I think we probably should schedule a time to get back together with Kurt, Mark, Lisa, anybody else who wants to join that, some of the visiting team members, and kind of regroup and figure that out. But I think everybody who's been involved in the Blackfoot, from the Blackfoot side, the home team, as opposed to the visiting team, I think probably should meet again fairly soon, both just within your groups and also as a whole group, just to touch base about the steering committee, about what that looks like, about a community coach, and what the decision was on that, and then also about some of the mini grant details, and like when the money is it's gonna go to the city. They've agreed to do a 3-part proposal, which makes it super slick and easy. So in the project description part, there'll just be 3 sections describing what each of the teams is going to spend their money on. And as I said today, we realize that things could shift a little between now and spring, and that's fine. Just if we have a sense of what you're planning to use the money for, about how much it will cost. We don't need bids, so keep it simple, and but you'll need to all kind of connect to get details into that application. I think Kurt is really taking the lead on putting that together.
Okay. Great. One thing I just realized we hadn't mentioned, over this coming month, over the next 3 or 4 weeks, the visiting team is going to be pulling together all of this work we've been doing this week and putting it into a report, and we'll kind of flesh it out more and add add more resources that might be helpful to Blackfoot with these projects. But we'll be including ideas like that in our report. So be looking for that now here looking towards the end of March. We'll certainly be in touch when that report is complete and available, and you'll have an opportunity to download it or obtain a printed copy, perhaps at City Hall.
And have all the visiting team members have you seen the Google form we put together for you to put your information in. There's a little draft of a report section from Cheeto, and then it's sort of a fillable form. So we tried to make it really easy for the visiting team members, but and I can't remember what the date is on there. There's a deadline for you to provide your contribution. Oh, Nancy's shaking her head. So we need.
I don't think that I received anything like that. That's not sounding at all familiar.
Yeah, I've sent the link to this Google form that Lori's referring to. I've sent the link a couple times in the past.
So oh, yes. I do recall.
I think
I've not looked at it.
Yeah.
But that's where the deadline is in that link.
I think when you go to that form, I don't, Marcy, do you remember? Is there a deadline when you open, when you look at?
I'm looking at it right now. I don't see a deadline, but we can sure set one.
Yeah. Why don't I do this? Why don't?
Oh, I know where it is. Keep going, John. I'll find it.
I was just going to say.
John, this is Mark.
Yes, Mark.
Is this business that the town hall needs to be involved in?
Not this business. So that's a good point. So why don't we say goodbye to the senior center, and Allison and Jason and Ray and Brian. Thank you for joining us, and we'll let you get on with your evening.
John and the rest of the visiting team, thank you very much. We really appreciate everything that you've done to help guide this process. We will look forward to maybe a meeting early next week.
Great. Yeah, and we'll definitely be in touch about the mini grant application. That's the task that's right in front of us currently. Yeah.
And congrats, everybody. I mean, I think the work you did, there was some heavy lifting because there weren't a lot of you, but really high quality stuff.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Thanks, everybody.
Well
Thank
done,
you
everybody.
for your
We'll
thank
see
you
you
for
later.
your guidance. So that was really helpful.
Thank you.